Working Group Knowledge Exchange Series. This is a part of the One Health Commission and One Health Social Science Initiative. I'd like to start by acknowledging the land, any humans, and any non-humans who are joining us today. I also want to acknowledge the Positive Connections Lab at the University of Saskatchewan and the One Health Commission for making this recorded series a possibility. The One Health Social Science Initiative was formed within the One Health Commission in 2017, and our Human Animal Bond Working Group was formed in the fall of 2024. The group was initiated by myself. My name is Colleen Dell, and I'm a professor and research chair in One Health and Wellness at the University of Saskatchewan in Saskatoon, Canada. Our evolving list of working group members are on our webpage on the One Health Commission website, and we are always looking to recruit new members, so do be in touch. So you see there the onehealthcommission.org, and under there you'll see the One Health Social Science Initiative, and then we are the Human Animal Bond Working Group. The photo shared here is some of the members of our working group. This was our second Zoom call. I think this is around November of 2024. And we have representation here from Nigeria, Ghana, the United States, Canada, Australia, Bangladesh, France, Brazil, Peru, and more. The direction of the Human Animal Bond Working Group is decided collaboratively by all of our members. And here's a working or a draft purpose statement. It says the One Health Working Group on the Human Animal Bond is dedicated to advancing the understanding and recognition of the diverse and dynamic interactions between humans, non-human animals, and the environment, focusing on the mutual benefits and challenges of the human-animal bond through a transdisciplinary lens. A more detailed version of our evolving or our working purpose statement can also be found on our webpage. As you know, or as many will know who are watching in, One Health addresses the complex interplay between human, animal, and environmental health. However, it's been predominantly led by veterinary and medical disciplines, and therefore focusing on zoonotic disease, which many also will know is the transmission of disease between humans and animals. One Health has frequently been overlooked by social science perspectives, such as values, culture, and well-being. And this is why the One Health Social Science Working Group formed in 2017, and now our subgroup on the Human Animal Bond in 2024. One of our first tasks as a working group is to offer a knowledge exchange series to share the various approaches to and understanding of the human-animal bond across our global network. In our increasingly globalized, dynamic, and our complex world, the human-animal bond offers opportunities for sharing as well as gaining new scientific insights. Integrating the human-animal bond with social science theories, social science methods, and intersectional analysis, for example, including social, psychological, cultural, and economic views, alongside mainstream epidemiological approaches, enables our working group, or aims to enable our working group to consider global health risks in a comprehensive way. As an international and transdisciplinary group, we bring together Western science, Indigenous knowledge, lived and living experiences, as well as geographical, cultural, and more than human perspectives and worldviews, all to better address complex One Health challenges. So please enjoy this webinar and be sure to be in contact with any questions or comments on our webpage. And if you want to join our group, you can send an email to me at kisbey@gmail.com. KISBEY@gmail.com. Thank you. Enjoy.
Presentation, we are going to be discussing the idea of integrating community-dwelling non-human animals into research programs. To tell you a little bit about myself, I am associate professor at Queen's University, which is in Ontario, Canada. I'm in the health science
lost audio, I believe.
Yeah, we missed it. We haven't heard anything for a few minutes now.
Colleen, when you shut your screen down, we lost audio.
Okay, let me try again. I'm going to start from the beginning and let me know.
In this presentation, we are going to be discussing the idea of integrating community-dwelling non-human animals into research programs. To tell you a little bit about myself, I am associate professor at Queen's University, which is in Ontario, Canada. I'm in the health sciences program, and I work from a One Health perspective. So first, some definitions. The One Health model that I use, it's the one that the WHO put forward in 2017. That is, One Health is an integrated, unifying approach to balance and optimize the health of people, animals, and the environment. So I am really looking at a One Health model that balances the needs of these three stakeholder groups. I don't consider the needs of humans to be more important than the non-human animals and the environment itself. So by community dwelling non-human companion animals, what I'm talking about is what is commonly referred to as a pet. These are non-human animals that live in households with human caregivers. Or in families. Quite often, they are considered members of the family. When I say integrate them into research, what I'm suggesting is that they maintain their relationship with their human families. So that means they continue to reside in the home with their human caregivers. They would travel to the institution or the organization where they are participating in research and participate. And then they would leave and go home with their caregiver. They're not staying overnight. They're not being kept in a laboratory. They are continuing to be cared for by the humans that they are familiar with and that they trust. And their treatment in research has to be done in such a way that that trust is maintained. So the only reason they might stay overnight in a research facility would be if, for example, they had a surgical procedure and they needed to be monitored overnight. But of course, if it was a situation where there was nobody present in the research facility overnight, then they would go home with their caregivers again, so that there is somebody to keep an eye on them. This idea of integrating community dwelling non-human animals in research is being done from the perspective of ensuring the well-being of the non-human animals, as well as meeting research goals and helping to move science and technology forward. So I'm going to do a quick overview of animals in research. I'll start globally and then we'll look at Canada, because that is where I am, and Ontario. So that's what I'm most familiar with. I am interested in hearing the perspectives and the experiences of people in other countries and places as well. So globally, there's an estimated almost 200 million animals that are used in research on an annual basis. The best statistics that I could get for global use of dogs, which is a good representation of community dwelling non-human animal, was from 2015. Approximately 200,000 dogs were used in research procedures in 2015. China used the most, and the United States came in close. Canada had a very small number of dogs, just under 10,000, compared to the US and China. But interestingly, animal use in research in Canada has been steadily growing, whereas, for example, in the EU, it has actually been declining, and the UK and France and Germany have been at similar levels as what they were 20 years ago or so. In the US, the figures that are reported are incomplete because some animals are not counted in their counts. Now, in Canada, what we have is the Canadian Council on Animal Care. and they oversee animal handling and care practices for scientific research. Now, important to note, this Council on Animal Care is in fact made up of member organizations, which are research organizations, which means that we have the standards and the practices are being created by members of the organizations who are doing the practices. So we don't have, an animal welfare organization that is creating animal handling and care practices. We have the users who are creating these parameters. They may be more focused on the needs of the research than the needs of the animals. And also to note, statistics reported to the CCAC is voluntary. So the numbers that they give us of animals in research are not necessarily presenting all of the animals involved. When you look at their 2023 animal data report, the CCAC reports over 3 million animals were used in research. More than 80,000 of those animals were used in procedures which cause severe pain near, at, or above the pain tolerance threshold of unanesthetized conscious animals. So we're talking about 80,000 plus animals that are used in procedures where the pain level is extreme. Approximately 35% of all animals were used in studies that were intended to advance medical research, veterinary medicine relating to human animal diseases, disorders. Some of them were for regulatory testing of products, for the protection of humans and animals, or even the environment. And others were for the development of products or appliances for human or veterinary medicine. When you look at the table, you'll see the numbers of animals, which I pulled directly from their report. And it shows you that obviously mice and fish make up the majority. I was surprised to see that over 500,000 cattle were used in research. Dogs were about 16,000. So that's quite a jump from the earlier reported use of dogs in 2015, which was approximately 10,000, just under. Now we're looking at over 16,000. Cats were 4,000. So you can see that Canadian researchers are using quite a variety of animals for their research projects. So in Ontario, we have an act, which is the Animals for Research Act. This act sets out the parameters for the treatment of animals in research in Ontario. And 3 points that I want to draw your attention to are, one, that animals can be obtained for research from a facility that breeds them for this purpose, or from another research facility. Under this act, the operators of pounds, which get lost, abandoned, surrendered, dogs and cats and other animals, are required to hand over these animals after the holding period if they are requested to supply them to a research organization. The second thing I wanted to point out is that although in Ontario we have an Animal Welfare Services Act, which is relatively recent, it does not apply in respect to animals in the possession of an operator of a research facility. So what they're saying is that the rules around animal welfare that apply to the general population can be ignored by researchers. Finally, the disposal of animals. According to this act, there is no legal way for an operator of a research facility to rehome an animal when it's done a research project. So I feel that these 3 points make the experience for the non-human animal to be extremely problematic. They're not protected by the welfare laws. They could be a lost family pet and they end up in research, and they have no opportunity for retirement or rehoming at the end of that research because this act does not allow for any of those things. This is not in keeping with the One Health model. We do not believe that the animal's well-being should be sacrificed in order to achieve these research goals. And to my mind, these 3 things result in the animal's well-being being compromised, if not sacrificed. Those 3 points that I just discussed were what brought me to start thinking about what are the alternatives to traditional animal testing models. So instead of using these purpose-bred dogs, that are bred in colonies of beagles with no purpose other than to go directly into research as soon as they become of the appropriate age, or instead of using lost stray pets seized from pounds or shelters, to use these community-dwelling, non-human companion animals and use them in such a way that is respectful of their needs. Community-dwelling, non-human companion animals could be used for these research, provided that certain criteria is put into place to protect their well-being, and also the well-being of their families, their human caregivers. However, the reality is that our pets, to use air quotes here, our pets, do get cancers. They do get diseases of the skin. They experience loss of sight, loss of hearing. Some of them experience mobility issues. Many of the areas in which we are doing scientific research, there are non-human companion animals that are already suffering from the disorders and the diseases which researchers want to study. So instead of inducing these diseases or disorders into otherwise healthy, purpose-bred animals, one would use pets that already have these diseases. But there are certain criteria that I think has to be followed in order for this to be ethical. One is that informed consent must be obtained from caregivers. So the caregivers need to know what is going to be done, what is the purpose, and how will this animal benefit potentially from this research study. The next thing is that the non-human companion animal must not be subjected to unnecessary harm or suffering. So we have to look at designing the research in a similar way that we do with human participants. The research must be focused on treatments for diseases or disorders that the animal already has been diagnosed with. Or they could be non-invasive, like enrichment-focused experiments, like psychological experiments, maze running, learning new tasks, that sort of thing. And in fact, if the caregiver could be present and or participate in those enrichment-focused experiments, that could actually be a really positive experience for both the non-human animal and the caregiver. Another important point is that the non-human animals must have the potential of benefiting from the research activity. And finally, and I think this is really important, is the non-human animal must return home with the caregiver daily, continuing to live a normal life. Another area in which community-dwelling non-human animals can be integrated into research programs would be through tissue donation. That would mean the establishment of non-human animal donor tissue banks for the use of students and researchers. They could be tissues removed in the course of a routine surgery. So, for example, we really advocate for spaying and neutering. So the testicles, the ovaries, the uterus, all those tissues that would normally just be thrown out could be sent to a tissue bank for all sorts of research with them. And then finally, the idea that upon the natural death of the community-dwelling non-human animal, that the whole body could be donated to be used in research. One of the reasons that I think that this integration of pets or community-dwelling non-human animals into research would be really beneficial is financially. The estimation is that the US spends $20 billion or more a year on animal testing. That's a lot of money. I don't know what the Canadian numbers are. If a researcher needed to have 10 dogs in a study for 100 days, then you're looking at $220 a day times 100 days. That's a lot of money just in animal care for those dogs. Now, if those dogs were living in the community and coming in for the treatment protocol or whatever the research activity is, and going home with their caregiver, there's a huge savings for the research labs, for the universities. And on the other side of this, we all know that veterinary costs have been rising exponentially, and that it's very hard for a lot of caregivers of non-human animals to be able to afford life-saving surgeries or cutting-edge treatments if they even have access to them. So if we could enroll them in research projects in a way that was beneficial to the animal, and free for the caregiver, we're looking at potentially saving lives and millions of dollars for caregivers. So what I've presented to you is an idea, but I believe that this idea is actually in play around the world. So we are continuing to look for researchers who can tell us about their use of community dwelling animals and, the pros, the cons, what that experience has been like. It's fine for me to theorize about how this might work, but we're trying to find out who's actually doing it, how well is it working, and could we apply it in other places around the world? Could we apply it across entire institutions like universities? So to participate in the study or for more information on this project, please feel free to email me. My email address is on the screen. I really appreciate you spending some time with me going over this. Thank you very much